Hi, this is Kim Newlove, host of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. Today's episode includes a recap of my weekend at the Ohio Pharmacist Association annual conference and brief interviews with two Ohio pharmacists, Emlah Tubuo and Greg Kramp. Today is April 8th, 2022, and the live, in-person portion of the annual meeting of the Ohio Pharmacist Association was last weekend, April 1st through 3rd. And I had a blast. You're going to hear all about the annual meeting from my perspective. And by the way, for anyone who's new to the Ohio Pharmacist Association, we also call it OPA, just 3 letters, OPA. I was lucky enough to earn 16 hours of pharmacy continuing education at the live portion of the conference. There are 30 hours of on-demand CPE or continuing pharmacy education available from today, which is April 8th, until June 8th, 2022. I'm hoping to get 14 more if possible. Last year, all of the sessions were online, and this year only some are. Either way, the online sessions are a nice bonus, and I really do appreciate the opportunity. Before we move on, I need to make an announcement. It's actually a disclaimer of sorts. I am an OPA member, but I do not work for the Ohio Pharmacists Association. I love them, but the opinions mentioned in this podcast episode are my own and not those of OPA. Also, I am not being compensated for any of the content in this podcast. I would say 100% of it's going to be positive, but I am not being compensated for any of this content. Now, on with the show. If you're new to the Pharmacist's Voice podcast, welcome. Again, I'm your host, Kim Newlove. I am a pharmacist by training, but I made a career transition to voice actor and podcast host. Among other things, I narrate audiobooks for women pharmacist authors, provide medical narration to clients in the pharmaceutical and biotech industries, and narrate content for explainer videos and e-learning projects. I was inspired by my nonverbal teenaged son with autism to combine my background as a pharmacist with my speaking voice and launch my voiceover business, The Pharmacist's Voice, in 2017. My son Craig helped me realize the power of having a voice and using it. My solo podcast episodes are about some aspect of being a pharmacist, a voice actor, a pharmacist podcaster, or my career transition from pharmacist to voice actor and podcast host. My interview shows feature a variety of people who use their voices to advocate for something, educate in some way, or entertain so that you're inspired to use your voice too. This is episode 143, and you can find the show notes with links to most of what I mentioned today on my website, thepharmacistvoice.com. You can also find my medical narration demo and a link to my online course, Pronounce Drug Names Like a Pro, on my website. That website again is thepharmacistvoice.com. This episode has 4 parts. In the first part, I'll give a recap from the sessions that I attended. I'll talk about what was the title of the session, who were the speakers, and what were 2 takeaways from the session. The second part of this podcast episode will be my interview with Emlah Tubuo. The third part will be my interview with Greg Kramp. And the fourth and final part of this episode will be a few stories about what went wrong back home at my house when I was gone. If you're a parent of teenagers, you're going to groan. It has to do with my younger son, Derek, missing the ACT on Saturday, April 2nd while I was gone, and the death of the only houseplant that I own. I know it's tragic, right? Everything turned out okay, but let's dive in. You'll hear about the bad stuff later. All right, here's a little background. I attended 11 sessions and I earned 16 hours of ACPE-approved pharmacy continuing education. 10 of the sessions were 90 minutes long. Only one of them was 60 minutes long. There were multiple offerings for each time slot, and honestly, it was hard to pick just one to attend. I'm counting on the on-demand sessions to be the ones that I really wanted to, fingers crossed, wanted to attend, but could not make it to. I'm trying to keep this episode as short as possible, so I'm going to keep these session recaps brief. But I will also mention some of the fun stuff and the shenanigans that happened in the margins. If you've never been to a pharmacist conference, I hope this shows you what it's like and that you'll also feel like it's worth going. I apologize in advance for not mentioning every single awesome pharmacist or student that I met by name. Please know that I enjoyed meeting you and that you were part of what made my conference weekend awesome. And by the way, I love conferences for two main reasons. Everybody's got their reasons, but here's my two. One, I love to learn, plenty of that going on at the conference, right? And two, I enjoy networking with other attendees, especially pharmacists and professors, the exhibitors, and students, but most of all, pharmacists. For anyone who didn't attend the OPA annual meeting, if you're interested in registering for the on demand sessions that I have access to because I paid for the full conference registration, just go to ohiopharmacists.org. That's Ohio Pharmacists with an S.org and click on the link for the annual conference. If you look at the online conference brochure, you can look at all the titles of the sessions that I did and did not attend. But if you go to that brochure, you'll be able to follow along. Now, on Friday, I attended 2 sessions in the morning and 2 in the afternoon, total of 4 for 6 CEs. The first session that I attended on Friday morning was titled Early Results from Provider Status Implementation. There were 4 speakers. They were Stu Beatty, Anna Hinkapie, Ann Metzger, and Becca Larman. With all due respect to the speakers, I know you have PharmDs and many of you are professors, but I could say doctor before everybody's name, but for future reference, I'd rather be like quicker up front and just say that most of the speakers were PharmDs or PhDs. I respect you all, but it's just quicker for me to use first and last name, so I'll go with that format. All due respect. Now, my 2 takeaways were 1, Ohio pharmacists have provider status as of January 2021. I know this is an international podcast, so some people, even in the neighboring state, may not know that we have provider status. So, anyways, my big point there is that Ohio pharmacists have provider status, and some pharmacists are getting paid for providing services. Now, my second takeaway was that there was a huge call to action at the end of this session. Stu Beatty was calling for all Ohio pharmacists that are in practice to sign up for a Medicaid ID number, enroll with Medicaid and MyCare plans, and bill for services that meet current rules. We have an opportunity. Let's take it. For the first session of the entire weekend, this was pretty exciting stuff. Pharmacists in Ohio have provider status. They're getting paid, and this is really something to get excited about. Let's move on to my second session on Friday morning. It was the OTC and SelfCare Challenge. It was moderated by Christine Klein and Max Conrad. 5 Ohio pharmacy schools competed in this Jeopardy game show-like competition. Those 5 schools were UC, otherwise known as the University of Cincinnati, NeoMed, otherwise known as Northeast Ohio Medical University, OSU, also known as The Ohio State University, Findlay, also known as University of Findlay, and ONU, Ohio Northern University. I did not see a team from my alma mater, the University of Toledo. Hey, what gives? Cedarville University also did not have a team. Now, fun fact, when I was in pharmacy school between 1996 and 2001, I believe there were only 5 pharmacy schools in Ohio. Now there are 7. I believe Findlay and Cedarville are new. And I believe that NeoMed actually used to be called NeoCom, Northeast Ohio College of Medicine. Can't remember exactly, but fun fact. What were my 2 takeaways from this? First of all, students are smart, right? I only knew about 80% of the answers, but honestly, just reading the room, that was pretty average for the audience. They were good questions, and I learned something. Now, my second takeaway was that all the students did an amazing job competing, but I was the most impressed with the team from the University of Cincinnati. Next year, I want to see UT, University of Toledo, compete. Let's go, Rockets. Give them Bearcats a run for their money. Just saying. All right, now, after the 2 morning sessions, we had a break for an awards luncheon. What's the fun part for me? Can you guess? I like meeting pharmacists and students and professors and hearing where everybody's from and what they do. hospital, retail, entrepreneurship. Plus, I got to hear about the accomplishments of the award-winning pharmacists and learn more about pharmacists and pharmacies that are pioneering provider status implementation in Ohio. That's a big deal. That was quite the opportunity to go to that luncheon. The first afternoon session on Friday was titled Current Trends in Prescription Drug Diversion. The speaker was Dr. Donnie Sullivan. I could listen to Dr. Donnie Sullivan for hours. He is a subject matter expert on prescription drug diversion, and my two big takeaways from his talk, how can I narrow it down to two? But the first one is that the former holy trinity of benzodiazepines, opioids, and soma has virtually disappeared. There are now other trends emerging. For example, instead of just oxycodone immediate release, I guess he's seeing a lot of oxycodone and acetaminophen in combination instead of the oxycodone by itself. And he said he's seeing a lot of oxycodone and acetaminophen plus tramadol in combination with one another on a schedule. He said he's also seeing lots of gabapentin, and I'll stop there. I'm not in clinical practice anymore, but if you are, you're probably shaking your head. So I'm going to move on to my second takeaway for this session, which was Dr. Sullivan recommended something that I honestly had never thought of. He suggested that it would be helpful to get a prescription drug monitoring program report for each prescriber. So, not just per patient, per prescriber. I had never thought of that. And it's not an option right now that I know of. At least he said it's not. But I can see how it would be helpful to see what each prescriber is writing for. Can you? So, anyways, maybe that's something we as pharmacists can advocate for moving forward. Let's move on to the second afternoon session on Friday, which was titled Generation RX and You Medication Safety in Action. There were three different speakers or facilitators for this session. They were all women: Ruth Emptage, Kelsey Schmull, and Tessa Miracle. If you're not familiar with the Generation RX program, the mission of the program is to educate people of all ages about safe medication taking practices and the potential dangers of misusing prescription medications. It's been around since 2007. Two of the takeaways from this session for me were: one, Generation RX has a lot of free resources and toolkits for pharmacists, pharmacy students, anyone who wants to educate children, teens, college students, adults, patients, I hope I'm getting all these, coworkers, and older adults about safe medication practices. Again, these are free resources, and if you want to learn more, you can visit generationrx.org. That's GENERATIONRX.org, generationrx.org. Moving on to my second takeaway from this, community partnerships are a big part of delivering messages to target audiences. So, community partnerships are important when you're giving a talk. But what does that mean? It means your entry point in speaking to a group in your community might be through a partnership with someone like Girl Scouts or 4-H groups or the local school, senior centers, or maybe even in my case, I've done this before. I spoke to a group of realtors whose clients probably didn't know that criminals pose as potential home buyers and go through closets or medicine cabinets searching for drugs. So, can you imagine that happening? Partnering with a group like realtors would actually just spread the message. That's what it's all about, spreading the message. There's a lot of opportunities to interact with different age groups about medication safety, and there's a lot of different partnerships that will lead to success with a Generation RX talk. That was that big takeaway. So they were great messages. We actually had an action plan that we put together. We worked in groups and we created those. Personally, I love this topic and I would love to give it more time, but I'm going to move on. The last part of Friday was a trade show and poster session. When's the last time you wandered around a trade show in a ballroom? I was happy. It was fun. It's been about 2 years for me. It was a blast walking around the trade show with Lauren Castle, another pharmacist from the state of Ohio. Lauren's actually been on my podcast. I'm sorry I forget the podcast episode number, but Lauren is the founder of the Functional Medicine Pharmacists Alliance, and we became much closer friends this weekend. It was fun. Lauren and I walked around together. We got our prize passports signed. Prize passport, you're probably wondering, what's that? Real quick, OPA has a raffle for prizes on Saturday afternoon. On Friday and Saturday, we all go around the trade show to each different table and we get initials on a piece of paper called a passport. Who initials them? All of the exhibitors in the trade show. All of them that are at their tables anyway. We got enough initials to get into the drawing on Saturday. You can't put your passport into the drawing unless it's sufficiently filled up, we learned. Now, in the process, Lauren and I must have given our elevator pitches to like 50 people, which was fun. By the end of the day, by the end of the 2 days of the trade show, I had mine boiled down to just 2 words. And I went through half a box of business cards, which it was fun meeting people and also making connections. And by the way, the 2 words that I used for my elevator pitch are medical narrator. I am a medical narrator. That could go for a lot of the stuff that I do, so I just went with that. If anyone wanted to know more, they just asked. Again, it was fun, and it was a great way to practice my elevator pitch. Plus, I got to meet Dr. Adam Martin, the fit pharmacist, and Tim Ulbrich at their table at the trade show. They had their own table they shared. I have had Zoom calls with both of them, but it was great to meet them in person. Unfortunately, I didn't make it to any of the poster presentations this year, but I saw the students and their faculty members working the crowds. Much respect to those who presented posters. I'm usually all over that, but this year I wasn't. After the trade show, there was food and entertainment. I had fun. I ate, I drank, it was great, but the biggest surprise was crying happy tears with Dan Krinsky and Sue Paul and Lauren Castle. You see, Dan showed me a video and it made me cry, but they were good tears. Okay, the video was from a company called Not Impossible. I'm going to have to put this video in the show notes. I'll have to find it first. Anyways, this group, Not Impossible, they helped a graffiti artist that had ALS draw with his eye gaze using special goggles. Can you imagine this? Somebody who's completely paralyzed and laying down wearing goggles using just his eyeball movement to draw. What? That's amazing. Some of the projects that they have completed gave me chills, and they gave me hope that someday, I'm going to try not to cry, they gave me hope that someday my nonverbal son with autism might speak. That video, watching somebody who could not move his hands, still be able to draw, that inspired me to submit a suggestion to Not Impossible on Saturday, April 2nd, 2022. It happened to be World Autism Day. Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe they can help. We'll see what happens. But Dan, I'm so glad you showed me that video. I was inspired. Dan, Sue, and Lauren all saw me cry. It's official. I'm a human. It's been seen. I'm sure there's a challenge in your life that you'd like to overcome. For me, it's my son's autism, especially his nonverbal nature. Maybe Not Impossible can help someone that you love too. I hope they can help my son. To learn more, visit notimpossible.com. Moving on. When I got up on Saturday morning, I headed to the hotel gym for a quick workout at 6 a.m. During my cool down, guess who walks in? Corey Jenks. He was one of our Saturday morning speakers. And also he was with Brian Bisher. He's a Cincinnati area pharmacist that I know from the Metapreneurs Conference. They both walked into the gym right as I was doing my cool down. You never know who you're going to see on a conference weekend at 7 a.m. or before 7 a.m., I guess, by that time, in the hotel gym. You just never know who you're going to see. We shared some laughs and then we parted ways until later that day. The morning of Saturday, April 2nd, 2022, was the most fun I have ever had at an OPA conference ever. It was so fun. I've been going to OPA, the annual conference, on and off for, I would say, more than 20 years, since around the time I was still a student, and I graduated in 2001. The first session of the day, this started me off right here. The first session of the day was titled SelfCare and Professional Wellbeing, the Prescription to Beat Burnout. The speakers were Dr. Adam Martin, the fit pharmacist, and Tim Ulbrich, co-founder and CEO of Your Financial Pharmacist. Adam was on episode 75 of my podcast. Tim's going to be a guest in June for my Pharmacist Dad series. Looking forward to it. I would love to recap Adam and Tim's entire talk, but I'll just say that my two takeaways were, number one, I felt inspired by listening to this. Tim and Adam are role models for pharmacists. I absolutely loved hearing them speak, and they worked fantastic together. When Adam and Tim talked about separating your identity from your role, it really hit home. There were days when I worked, especially large chain community practice, where I had a bad day and I felt like a bad pharmacist. They made a comment that I needed to hear 10 years ago when I was still in practice. But they said, just because you have a bad day doesn't mean you're a bad person. You can't connect your identity as a person to your role and your bad day. You still have value even on a bad day. I needed to hear that. Did you need to hear that? Do you know someone who needs to hear that? You need to share that message. And my second takeaway was I learned that many pharmacists use dance parties in the pharmacy to improve mood. Dance parties in the pharmacy. I had never heard of this. And how fun! Adam and Tim did a great job getting the audience to share ideas of ways to avoid burnout. And the dance party thing came up at least twice. It was very cool. If you're not having dance parties, maybe try one today. They're great. So, anyways, I was inspired. I'd love to say more, but I'm going to move on. And I'm going to talk about my next morning session on Saturday. The title of my second morning session was Putting Yes and to Work, building a more adaptable, empathetic, and humanizing healthcare experience. The speaker was Corey Jenks, who's also been on my podcast. That was episode 89. My two takeaways were, there was a lot, but probably the two that I'd like to share most are, one, this was by far the most fun CE session I have ever attended, ever in the history of my attending CE sessions. Corey's entertaining, and he also got a lot of audience participation. Pharmacists don't always feel super lively and don't always go outside their comfort zones and try comedy on a Saturday at a conference, but Corey got him to do it. It was fun, and we all learned. Now, my second takeaway was that we have to give up control in order to contribute to our teams. Healthcare professionals need to be fully present when listening. Why do we need to do that? Because we need to make sure that our patients feel seen, heard, and understood. We can't do that when we're already thinking about what to say next, right? We can't be thinking about what to say next when somebody's talking. How many times have you listened to somebody and thought more about what you're going to say next than what the person that you're listening to just said? I've done it. I will admit it. My name's Kim Newlove, and I've thought of answers while listening to somebody explain something. It's embarrassing, but it was good to learn this, that we all need training and the laughs that go along with it. We need to make sure that we really listen and then respond and try to say yes more than we say no. It was a good session. There was some serious points, but it was also hilarious. If you are an Ohio Pharmacist Association member who bought the conference registration, who signed up for the conference, please check out Corey's talk if they play it on the replay. It is fun. And you might even see me up on stage too. All right. Again, this was the best, most fun OPA morning in the history of my attending annual meetings. I was inspired, I was entertained, I laughed, and I learned. And moving on, let's talk about lunch on Saturday. Lunch on Saturday was on our own during the trade show. It was about this time that I learned that my 16-year-old son, Derek, slept through his ACT test because, well, we'll get into that later. I guess he saw the message that I sent him, good luck, honey, 2 hours too late. That was probably part of the problem. Anyways, again, more on this later in the podcast. During the trade show, this was fun. Lauren Castle and I finished getting our prize passports initialed. We dropped our entries off in the raffle prize bin, and then we've won some stuff. We won. Yay. Woohoo. She won a $50 gift card, I think, to Kroger, and I won a wireless speaker, a Bluetooth speaker, anyways, Bluetooth speaker. I just want to say thank you to the prize donors. Winning is fun, but I also had fun making some memories with Lauren. Good times. I could tell you a number of stories from the trade show. Like there was a guy that had jello shots, but I'm just going to move on and talk about the 2 afternoon sessions instead. I'm hoping to actually connect this audio file to all of the pictures that I took and put it on my YouTube channel. That would actually be a hoot now that I think about it, because now that I think about the booth giving out the jello shots, that was a heck of an experience and awfully fun. Not something you would see every day. So, anyways, the lunch and the trade show ended. I won my prizes. Then I moved on to the first afternoon session of Saturday. It was titled Pharmacy's Role in Human Trafficking Awareness. I'm going to bring my mood down a little bit. This was a serious topic. The speakers were Dr. Karen Keir and a 2022 PharmD candidate named Temi Omidawaju. They were both from Ohio Northern University. Let's just take a second to acknowledge that human trafficking is despicable, and that if there's anything we can do as pharmacists to help, we need to do it. My two biggest takeaways from this session were 1, a phone number, and 2, pharmacy specific questions you can ask to help identify somebody who's being trafficked. Let's talk about the phone number real quick. I want you to write this down or program it in your phone if you're driving. Please don't write while you're driving. Anyways, the number is 1-888-3737-888. Got that? 1-888-3737-888. What is that phone number? Who are we calling here? That's the National Human Trafficking Hotline. National Human Trafficking Hotline. 1-888-3737-888. Write it down, program it in your phone. It just might save somebody's life. As an alternative, there's a text line. Have you ever seen that where you can text a message to a certain number? That message is info, I-N-F-O, info, or help, H-E-L-P, help. And the text number, so you can text help or info to the digits 233-733. That's 233-733. And all spelled out, that's the word be free, Befree. So text info or help to be free. Just for the sake of completeness, there is a website that you can go to. It is https://humantraffickinghotline.org. And I guess to be complete, you can also add the report-trafficking at the end. So that's https://humantraffickinghotline.org/report-trafficking. Have you got all those? The hotline number, the text number, and the website? Those will all be in the show notes. Very serious topic. What you do with those could save somebody's life, so write them down. And my second takeaway was, like I mentioned, there are pharmacy-specific questions that you can ask that will actually help you identify if somebody's being trafficked so you can intervene. For example, here's a question. Who's in charge of handling your medications? If somebody is handling that person and only letting them have medications if they're controlling them, the person, not the medicines, that's a sign that that person might be trafficked. So what kind of medications would they have? Something for frequent sexually transmitted infections? I'm going to leave it at that. I could talk about this topic all day too. I am disgusted by human trafficking, and if there's anything I can do to help, I will certainly do it. Those numbers are in my phone now for sure. And the theme of the whole entire talk, I felt like, was identify, question, intervene. So identify a questionable person, ask them questions to find out what's going on and if they need help, if they'd like help, what's going on, and then do something about it. Intervene. Identify, question, intervene. I know this is not my passion project at all, but I must say, Temi, the student from Ohio Northern, did, I would say, 80% of the talking or more. She was amazing. You could tell her passion and that she really wants to help people. I have chills just thinking about it right now. If we could all have that much passion about things that we care about, the world would be a better place. Thank God there are people who are passionate about this, and they're letting us know what we can do as pharmacists to help. Great topic. So glad she was there. Let's lighten the mood a little bit here. Let's move on. The second session of Saturday afternoon was titled Successful Pharmacy Entrepreneurship. Very simple, Successful Pharmacy Entrepreneurship. And the speakers were Mark Sweeney and Chris Antipis. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Antipis. I love sayings and book recommendations, and these guys had a lot of cool sayings in theirs. So my two takeaways are a book recommendation and a comment or saying that they made. All right, here goes. Here's the saying. Challenging times are great for innovation. Challenging times are great for innovation. This talk was all about entrepreneurship, right? Pharmacists are living in challenging times, right? It's a great time for innovation. Let's innovate. I love that. That was like a very encouraging message from entrepreneurs, encouraging other future entrepreneurs. The book suggestion they made is Blue Ocean Strategy by W. Chan Kim and Renee Mauborgne. Blue Ocean Strategy by W. Chan Kim and Renee Mauborgne. Why am I sharing this book suggestion? It has to do with identifying business opportunities. What is a blue ocean? I'm sure you could look this up, but you want to go where the sharks aren't killing all the fish, right? That's the red ocean. The ocean's literally red, where there's a lot of competition. The big fish are eating the little fish, right? You want to find a blue ocean, someplace where there's a lot of opportunity. I personally would like to read this book. I'm going to put it on my list of books to read. I've got just a couple books on that list, but anyways, maybe you would like that book suggestion too. Okay, I got to put in this third takeaway. Some sessions are just hard to pick two things, okay? But I must say that I learned a couple things from these two guys who are serial entrepreneurs, Mark and Chris. Ohio is attractive to biotech. Ohio is attractive to the biotech industry. I didn't know that, and they shared that during the conference. I'm smiling big because I audition for roles for biotech companies when I'm going to these online casting sites. I direct market myself. I try to connect with people who are in biotech. I would love to do more work for biotech companies. Anyways, I'm smiling big because this third takeaway is that if Ohio is attractive to biotech companies and I can get some work with them, that's to my advantage. So thanks for that tip, Mark and Chris. I got to put in that third takeaway because that affects me personally. Moving on. On Saturday afternoon, after the sessions, I went to a reception with drinks and appetizers in Denmark's Secret Cellar. Yes, that's the name of a real place. How cool is that? It was right across from the convention center. Thank you to the sponsors for any of these receptions and things, but this one was from Omnicell and Enliven Health. Thank you. You create opportunities for pharmacists to get together and share ideas and relax. I met up with a number of pharmacists, including, again, Lauren Castle and Sue Paul. I can't escape those girls. I love them. We had drinks, and we had the best 2-bite chocolate chip cannoli ever. So good. These receptions are fun, and it's nice to get away from what I call the classroom. All right, I headed out of the Secret Cellar just in time to record a quick podcast interview with Dr. Emlah Tubuo before the OPA President's reception. There's a reception, a banquet, and the desserts reception in the conference center. So Emlah and I got together just to introduce her super quick here. Dr. Emlah Tubuo is a pharmacist and entrepreneur from the Columbus, Ohio area. Let's hear from Emlah. Hi, Emlah. Welcome to the Pharmacist Voice podcast. How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you for having me, Kim.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's so fun to meet other Ohio pharmacists who are doing interesting things.
You know what? This is refreshing, and this is absolutely why I come to the OPA conference every year.
Yeah, to network and learn things, right? I mean, that's what I do it for. What brings you to OPA?
Same reason. What a surprise. So, network and learn. We are always learning. I walked by today and somebody said, "Oh, you look like a student." I go, "I am a student of life." And that's why I'm here.
Yes, absolutely. But you've added something new to your reason for coming. You had an exhibit table in the exhibit hall this year, right?
Wonderful, yes.
Tell me about this.
Well, Kim, I started a line of supplements, pharmaceutical grade supplements, Emla Naturals, and I just feel like I have found the right notes that I was incarnated to sing. It is my passion. As pharmacists, we recommend supplements, but not with enough confidence. We tend to shy away from it, typically because we don't have maybe the right tools, or we just don't spend enough time with it, or we don't have the background. My goal with Emla Naturals is to empower pharmacists. So when we say with lifestyle modifications and this medication, we can get the outcome that we want for our patient, we usually just mention lifestyle modification and stop right there, and then allow the patient to figure out what the lifestyle modification is. I would love us to go one step further.
You bring up a good point. Do you give them a plan?
I love to. This is what I do at the pharmacy. I say, you know what, this is the metformin that you're taking today. This is because you've been diagnosed with this. The normal counseling that will go. And the lifestyle modifications, we take it one step further. That follow-up call with the patient. What are you eating? We make sure that nutrition is really, people understand what a nutrient-dense diet is. And these people are already taking supplements. So we lead that conversation as pharmacists, because right now that conversation is being led by Amazon, by their friends, by their neighbors. You know, people are at home taking echinacea because my neighbor said she's taking it and it's helping my immune system, and I'm taking warfarin and I'm taking my echinacea. And so those drug interactions, that it is our place with the clinical know-how to guide the patients and direct them and encourage them to exercise, encourage them to eat nutrient-dense diets, to that it's all together. There is so much more to health than dispensing. So I love to say at Emla Naturals, we are dispensing care and kindness. So we're going one step beyond the prescriptions.
All right. Well, I saw a lot of products at your table, and I'm hoping to put a picture of those products and you and some of your students on my website. Anybody listening to this, go to thepharmacistvoice.com and click the podcast tab and look for, I believe it'll be episode 143, and just check out her table. Tell me about these products that were on your table.
I love it. Those products are pharmaceutical grade supplements, carefully selected with the pharmacist in mind. Think about it. Your patient leaves the physician's office. They have had a blood test and the physician said, go to the pharmacy and get some iron. And they come to the pharmacy, they stand there, and they're looking at about 10 different types of iron on the shelf, ranging from $4.99 to $20.99. And which one should I buy? Ferrous sulfate, ferrous gluconate. They stand there with no knowledge. I want to empower the pharmacists to help. At Emla Naturals, our iron is bisglycinate. A lot easier. Chelated salt form, a lot easier on the stomach. So that way, it's not causing the constipation that ferrous sulfate would have caused. So something that the patients have access to, something that we can educate them, and that way it will improve compliance. Overall, one component, but will help with the general aspect of health. And I just want to, we have a newsletter that we're a practitioner newsletter, and getting the emails, the sign up will be on our website. So pharmacists can sign up and get these tidbits, just bite-sized information to help some counseling that we can help to recommend supplements with confidence and not overwhelm our patients. And so I'm doing that and working on a book. So
you are? Oh, that's exciting.
Yes.
Is it going to be on the topic of vitamins and herbs, or what's the topic?
My book is going to be about my journey to entrepreneurship, including the supplements, what else I've incorporated to prevent burnout as a pharmacist, to become a good mom so that I can become a good pharmacist, to be a good friend, to be a good sister, just the practice of humanistic pharmacy. So how, as pharmacists, we can incorporate our practice into life as a whole and not isolate it.
Very good. And all of our family members call on us, don't they, when they know we're pharmacists, right?
Absolutely,
So they have
Kim.
questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as pharmacists, we are so accessible. And we
Yes.
have this clinical know-how, and it does no good when it stays in our heads. So we have to share it with the rest of the world, with the patients that we are so called to take care of. So we serving and giving, because in my mind, giving is growing.
Yes. There's so many different ways to think about pharmacy, and it's so nice to hear how other people feel about it and their attitudes towards it, because there's some people that are really bitter right now because they hate their jobs. But for you, this is a super exciting time. Can you tell me a little bit about your day job, and then also where are you selling Emla Naturals?
So I practice at Powell Pharmacy, which is an independent pharmacy that I own.
Congrats.
So, thank you. Thank you. It is really refreshing to see people like you and the journey towards entrepreneurship, because my goal is we have worked so hard as pharmacists, and we have the loans to prove. And we have put in our lifetime, our effort in this academic journey. We are here. We might as well enjoy it.
We're invested. That is for sure.
We are invested. So
yes.
I want us to enjoy this journey. And my goal, I don't know how I'm going to achieve this, is to make sure that every pharmacist enjoys what they're doing.
That's great. I love the positive messages that you're spreading.
Yeah. Thank you. And so even if we are selling supplements and we are educating about supplements, you can go on emlahnaturals.com to find these products are all there. And every supplement has a one-page clinical review where you can read about it and reference it to your patients and download those drug information sheets for every supplements. We have them online. We are on Facebook and Instagram.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
We're on Facebook and Instagram so far, and we're setting out this newsletter. So
great. I'll have to get those social media links from you and put them in the show notes, because I know people love to just click and go.
Absolutely. And what really differentiates Emla Naturals is the information. We are focused on education first, because you can find supplements everywhere, from the gym to Amazon, to the grocery store, to everywhere. You can find supplements everywhere. But what Emla Naturals stands for is education. So making those informed decisions and just basic subtle differences like bioavailability, and drug interactions. So that's our priority as pharmacists.
And you're confident in what you're dispensing, you're offering them something. I know when I was working at Walgreens, there would be at least 4 or 5 different brands. And the patient didn't know which one to trust. And when you have your own label, you trust it. I mean, you really stand behind it. So
absolutely. We put our name behind it. You go on the shelf, there's magnesium oxide, there's magnesium citrate, there's magnesium glycinate, malate. As I'm a pharmacist and I'm overwhelmed. So think of my mom. My mom is going to stand there and go, maybe I should buy the most expensive one because that's the better one. She's not thinking about salt forms. She's thinking about the sale. Which one's on sale?
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's how our patients would look at it, because that's how I would think if I was not a pharmacist. But our goal is to educate them about the salt form. What magnesium are you looking for? If you're looking for constipation, you might want to try the citrate. Magnesium oxide is only 4% absorbable. Glycine is the one that's going to cross the blood-brain barrier, and so the newsletter will help pharmacists with these, and nutrient depletion is something that we focus on. If you keep asking me questions, I'll keep going, Kim. I love this.
Well, I don't want to keep you too long, because I know this right now, as we record this, the President's Banquet is just about to begin. There's some networking going on, but I do want to ask you, you were in the exhibit hall so that other pharmacists had the opportunity to purchase your products. Is that right?
Not necessarily to purchase, to become an affiliate.
Affiliate, okay.
Yes, so you can, as a pharmacist, if you would love to be able to recommend supplements to your patients, as we already do, you could recommend pharmaceutical grade supplements through Emla Naturals and send them to the website, and they buy, so that pharmacists, you can get a commission out of it. So that's really the goal.
Okay.
That's how we would empower pharmacists, not only with the knowledge, but also with the products. So that's something that you can do, and because it's for it to all come together.
So you're equipping pharmacists with knowledge, but then also a reliable source of the medication or the over-the-counter product, right?
Absolutely. And some profitability on the side so that they can make that commission as well. So putting everything together, because that is life. We cannot separate and isolate those individual parts.
Awesome. How'd you get into this, by the way?
Oh my goodness, I have been, when I was pregnant with my first child, I was told that I was vitamin D deficient after the lab work. And I went to the store. Then I worked at Kroger. And I walked in and there were like 20 vitamin Ds in front of me. As a pharmacy student, I was overwhelmed. And I just imagined everybody out there. And that's when I started doing research on supplements. And I found out there's pharmaceutical grade supplements. And I did research it. Only took me about 10 years to get to where I'm at today, but...
Only 10 years.
Yes. But beautiful, I've acquired so much knowledge along the way, and I just don't want to keep it with me. I want to share as much as I can with my fellow pharmacists, so we are well-equipped to continue to do what we do.
Congratulations on your success. What's next for Emla Naturals?
After the book, we are going to hopefully have a podcast. That's the prayer.
Oh,
that's the prayer.
How exciting.
Encouraged by people like you, and hopefully taking on some stages to be able to share our message with other people at OPA here, at McKesson Idea Share, other places where we have like minds, and just encouraging each other.
Very exciting. Well, I wish you luck on your journey. I'm so glad that we met and we can encourage each other. And as you start your podcast, now I'm a resource for you. I'm an Ohio pharmacist and a podcaster. So let's stay in touch.
Absolutely, Kim. This was so refreshing. It is just so wonderful to meet like-minded pharmacists. That is why I love coming to places like this. I am absolutely energized by people like you.
I'm energized by you too. I met you this weekend and we have had a blast. Like we look at each other when something fun's going on. Like, are you enjoying this as much as me? Yeah, it's been a blast.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Fantastic.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing how you use your voice here on the Pharmacist Voice podcast. All right. I'll see you at the banquet.
Thanks for giving pharmacists this platform, and thanks for the opportunity.
My pleasure.
Love it.
Best wishes for much success, Emla. I'll be watching your greatness on LinkedIn, and I look forward to seeing you again at OPA's next gathering. It is so fun to meet people and watch them come along in their businesses. Now, moving on to Sunday. Sunday was the last day of the conference, and I attended 3 sessions. All of them were in the morning. I had 90 minutes, then a 10-minute break, 90 minutes, then a 10-minute break, then 60 minutes. It was a long morning. It actually ended right around, I think, 12:45. First up was the 2022 legislative update. There were 4 speakers. Ernie Boyd, who is the executive director of the Ohio Pharmacist Association, Michelle Fitzgibbon, a government relations professional, and Dan Fitzpatrick, also a government affairs professional. And the last speaker was Antonio Chacha. By the way, if you live anywhere in the United States and you're a pharmacist and you have not heard of Antonio Chacha, look him up. He's an amazing advocate for the profession of pharmacy. I haven't been getting into the speakers' backgrounds, but I just want you to know that Antonio is someone to just research, look him up, and listen to him on podcasts. I believe it was the Political Pharmacist podcast. He was on there not too long ago testifying at a hearing. And anyways, it was amazing. He does a great job explaining himself. Unlike me, who's going on and on about Antonio Chacha. So let's move on. He's OPA's former director of government and public affairs, and he's currently an advocate for open access, transparency, competitive markets, and patient-centered care. He's the CEO of 46 Brooklyn Research and 3 Axis Advisors. If you don't know what those are, and you're a pharmacist, especially in community practice, you might want to look those up. There are so many takeaways from this session. It's hard to narrow it down to 2, but I'm going to do it. If you're an Ohio Pharmacist Association member and you're part of the conference, but you didn't get to watch it live, if you're allowed to watch the replay, if that's one of your options for the on-demand CE, it's worth your time. Check it out. All right, now, big takeaway here. The Ohio Pharmacist Association cares deeply about the laws that affect pharmacists and our ability to serve patients. Okay? They're making sure that our voice collectively as pharmacists is heard by state lawmakers. During the talk, I heard a lot about PBM reform. Ohio House Bill 336 is just an example. I am not super up on my politics. Sorry, I apologize. So I'm not going to go into the details, but I just want to say Thank you, OPA. Thank you for caring. Thank you for advocating for Ohio pharmacists. And my second takeaway is having pharmacists among our state legislators would help our profession. You probably don't know this, but very few legislators are also pharmacists. I mean, what are the odds? There just aren't many. So, legislators, as a result, often don't understand the profession and how laws affect us. If we want more understanding, we need more pharmacists to become lawmakers, or at least get involved, get active. If you're interested in running for office in Ohio, talk to Ernie Boyd. OPA would support you. All right, I feel like that was a very serious topic. Let's move on to the second session on Sunday. The one that I went to was titled The Four Pillars of Pharmacogenomics and Personalized Medicine. There were 3 speakers at this one. 2 of them have actually been on my podcast. They are Sue Paul and Dan Krinsky. Sue was on episode 135 and Dan was on episode 133. The speaker who wasn't on my podcast was Dr. Amy Van Milligan. She's a medical doctor from the Cincinnati, Ohio area. My 2 big takeaways were this. Number 1, patient cases illustrate points beautifully. That has classically been something that I have loved at conferences. As much as I nerd out about the science of drug-gene interactions, there's nothing like a good old-fashioned patient case to illustrate a problem, show how something, which in this case is pharmacogenomics, can be part of the solution, and highlight how good a patient can feel when he or she is on the right medication. I love that combination. Problem, solution, result. Very powerful. I think we only went through 2 patient cases. We kind of ran out of time, and I'm dying to share them with you, but I need to move on. My second takeaway in this pharmacogenomics talk was that there are target markets for pharmacogenomics. I used to think that you could use pharmacogenomics for anything and everything, but I, over time, have learned that it can only help with selected health conditions, such as ADHD, asthma, cancer, cardiovascular disease. I'm just reading this off my sheet here, cholesterol, epilepsy, HIV or AIDS, pain management, hypertension, and of course, mental health conditions. That's a robust list. Lots of opportunities to help people with pharmacogenomics. Personal opinion here. Let's get more pharmacists in this space. Let's help more people. End rant. Moving on to the last session that I attended. Last session of the whole entire conference for me. The title was Counterfeit Medicines in the U.S. Supply Chain. Learn how the criminals operate to keep your patients safe. Great title, by the way. The speaker was not a pharmacist. His name is Shabir Safdar, and he's from the Partnership for Safe Medicines, which you can find at safemedicines.org. Holy Toledo, this topic. Wow. I am saddened that criminals even counterfeit medications and that it's possible for them to get into the supply chain. It saddens me, but it's scary. Although this session was shocking, it was one of the most interesting ones of the whole entire weekend for me. Here's my 2 takeaways. 1, some of the drugs that have been counterfeited include Epigen, Descovy, and Biktarvy. These are expensive medications, and counterfeiting them and selling them earned some criminals millions of dollars. That is so sad. The crime was discovered in one example through re-diagnosis of uncontrolled HIV. Can you imagine? That is not right. That is so unfair to the patients. No crime is ever fair to the victim, but this being a medical crime, I'm extra angry to hear about this. My second takeaway is that there are things pharmacists can do to spot fakes. One of them was looking at transaction logs, and I'm afraid that I'm going to explain this poorly, but basically, a drug would start in, for example, New York, somewhere in the United States, and then fly to a different space offshore, like Puerto Rico, and then re-enter the country in Philadelphia, for example. That should not happen. New York and Philadelphia are right next to each other. So seeing that in a transaction log should be a red flag that there could be something wrong, that something unsavory is happening. And then the second thing that pharmacists can look out for is something that we would probably catch anyways, a packaging error. For example, we were shown a bottle of Epigen where the degree symbol, like 2 to 8 degrees Celsius, I think it was what was on the box. The degree symbol was missing on the temperature that you're supposed to store the drug at. So if I saw that, that would make me think there's something not quite right here. I think you would catch that too, but there's got to be more examples, and I would love to hear more about this. I hope that Ernie Boyd creates another educational opportunity for Ohio pharmacists to learn from this speaker. And in the meantime, I'm going to check out his website, safemedicines.org. Safemedicines.org. And one last thing, this speaker, Sabir Safdar, sorry if I'm butchering your name, he recommended reading a true crime book that I want to pass on. Its title is Dangerous Doses. Dangerous Doses. And it's by the author Catherine Eban. Hope I'm not messing up her last name. Catherine Eban, E-B-A-N. Eban, maybe? If you recognize the name of that author, it's because she also wrote the best-selling book, Bottle of Lies. Bottle of Lies, also a good one. I have that in my queue on Audible. I have not listened to it yet. So again, Dangerous Doses or Bottle of Lies by Catherine Eban. Or Eban. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. I love pronouncing stuff right too, because as a narrator, it's part of my job. Anyways, free pass. It's a podcast. Moving on. That concludes the summary of my sessions that I attended at OPA. Once the sessions concluded on Sunday, I carpooled back home with my good friend, Greg Kramp. So next, I want to share a short interview with Greg. Just a heads up, we recorded this with lapel microphones in a moving car at high speeds on I-75, which is a big no-no because of wind noise, not being our friend, of course, and paying attention to the road being important, but we did it anyway. Without further ado, here's my interview with Greg Kramp. Hi, Greg. Welcome to the Pharmacist Voice podcast. How are you?
Doing great.
All right. So you've been my wingman all weekend at the Ohio Pharmacist Association annual conference, right?
Yeah, it's been a good time.
Yes, absolutely. And we are right now on I-75 headed back towards the Toledo area. So we thought, why not? Let's put on some mics and record something for the podcast, right?
Yeah, that sounded like a good idea.
All right. Who said you can't have fun while podcasting? The sound quality is probably not the best. I apologize for anybody who's got a good ear, but hey, it's wind noise. That's what you hear is wind noise. Anyways, Greg, what are some of your takeaways from this year's Ohio Pharmacist Association annual meeting?
Well, we had a lot of change during COVID, and there's more change coming ahead. They keep on talking about provider status and the change that's going to bring. So that might look like us billing for things other than medications. There's a real need to support Ohio Pharmacist Association because what they do with the legislature in Ohio really impacts, like if we get paid or what we can do, like giving vaccines, or during COVID we were giving tests to people through our drive-through, like COVID-19 tests. So these things could stay and expand, or with laws they could disappear.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity right now. There is. And OPA is an amazing advocate for the whole pharmacy profession. And good things happen in Ohio. In fact, across the nation, some other states model what we do here in Ohio in their own states. So in order for that to continue, I think we need more pharmacists to get involved, and we need to continue to support OPA. I had a fantastic weekend. I loved doing all of the CEs. I attended, I think, 16 hours worth of CE. So I sat on my butt quite a bit this weekend. I had a good time doing it, though. And by far, Saturday morning was my favorite. Dr. Adam Martin and Tim Ulbrich worked together for a CE talking about self-care, and it was fantastic. The energy was amazing. It was fun. It was edutainment. I loved it. And then right after that, Corey Jenks was talking about using improv to help with healthcare, helping patients to feel basically seen, heard, and understood. I loved it. Corey was fantastic. It was fun. It was literally fun. And all the audience participation was amazing. And so anyways, I know we started off on a serious note, but what were some of your favorite moments, some of your favorite CEs?
Boy, I attended both those CE, and I really enjoyed those too. Unlike some of the CE that's focused on, what we know, that old saying is people don't care about what you know until they know that you care.
Yeah.
And so their messages of firstly caring about yourself, and Tim and what was his name? Adam.
Adam.
Their main message was take care of yourself, and they gave a solution to this whole burnout problem. Their solution to burnout was to control or master your mindset. And they connected and told us about how your strategy, what you're going to do, your story, and then your state of mind are all connected. And that was really the solution to burnout, to preventing burnout. And so, they said for your state of mind, the easiest way to change your state of mind was to get up and move. So they said make exercise something that you do. They also, and a couple people in the audience were talking about how music really helped put them in the right state of mind. And then when they were talking about story, they were talking about, is this something that happened to you, or is there a way to flip that story and really kind of have it to your advantage, something where something less than positive happened, but you turned it around and made it a positive, or turned it around and found out how to overcome that barrier. So
I can't ever say these things as good as they did when they were, doing their live talk, but I learned a lot. And there was a really good example that Adam used, and he crumpled up a $100 bill and he dropped it on the floor, and he said, does that $100 bill have any less value just because I crumpled it up and threw it on the floor? Of course not. And he compared that to how we get kind of stressed out or wrung out with our lives. And just because we're frustrated and we don't feel so good about ourselves doesn't mean we have any less value. We need to pick ourselves up, straighten ourselves out, and move on and do the best that we can, because we still have just as much value. That was a huge takeaway for me. What were some of your other takeaways or favorite CEs for the weekend?
Yeah, following up on what we were talking about with Adam and Tim, Corey Jenks had a really a presentation, a CE that really fit hand in hand. They were one right after the other, and they weren't about this is the best blood thinner, or this is how we manage diabetes, things that are really important, but how we manage communication, some of the soft skills that he learned and honed by doing stand-up, improv
yeah.
comedy. And that we pharmacists can get caught up in what the book says, or what we expect the customer interaction to go like. But the reality is the customer interaction, or even the interaction between ourselves and the physician's office, is really improv. And that sometimes we're thinking about what we're going to say next, as opposed to listening and hearing the other person we're talking to, the patient or the prescriber's office.
Yeah, sometimes we think the next step ahead. We think we know what we're going to say before the person we're listening to, or supposed to be listening to, has even finished what they're saying. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, pharmacists can be like that. Yeah, and so in him doing and working on his soft skills, he's become a lot better pharmacist. He said the takeaway that he gets from, or the best compliments he gets from some of the patients he works with, was, "You were the first person that really listened to me." And
I know as we've gotten tested and spread thin with COVID, it could be easy to like just want to go on to the next thing and get these tasks done. And now that we're a little bit back to normal, that's something that I like to focus on in the future, is like working on some of these soft skills, really hearing what our customers need and delivering that information.
Yeah, Corey said that the most important two words that he could teach us during that session were yes and. And he's not saying if somebody asks for 100 Percocet without a prescription, you just say yes, and I'll do it right away. No, you don't say that. No, he's trying to teach us all that we need to find a way to say yes. Like, yes, I could do that if you had a prescription for a legitimate medical purpose, but you don't. So let's talk about other options. We've got over-the-counter Tylenol. You know, you start by kind of saying yes, because how many times do we say no in pharmacy? Can I have those Percocet? No. You know, can I have a discount? No. Can I have that for free? No. Can you do this in 10 minutes? No. When do you get to say yes? You have to find a way. And it's not always the words yes and, but the intention is yes and. Yeah. I love what you shared, but I had to share my own 2 cents too.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Kim. Yeah, the thing I took away from that, in addition to finding a solution to our customers' problems, is like also just hearing them out completely. Like, okay, you had that side effect, or you had some questions about this medication, or, you know, had some questions about how to use the medication. Like, yes, and like, you know, keep on going, encouraging them to fully describe what it is that's on their mind, so we give them the best answer, and so we follow up, you know, in the best way, like be it referral to their doctor, or just making sure that we hear them and they know that they've been heard by us, that we're the most trusted profession out there, because they trust that we hear them, that what our customers tell us is so important, that we keep it confidential, that we really address them individually.
Yeah, we can say, yes, I will listen to you, and I care. Yeah. You don't have to use the words, but the intention's there. Like, yes, I want to hear from you, and I want to help you. They need to feel seen, heard, and understood. Corey's got it right. I think that it's a more empathetic way to practice healthcare, practice pharmacy.
I think it was his words. He said, we're not really like selling medications, we're selling hope. If it wasn't him, it was someone else that
might have been Adam, I don't know. He talks about being a hope dealer.
Maybe that was it.
Being a hope dealer sounds like a good thing, so let's go with that.
Yeah.
Anything else super memorable, or any other final thoughts?
Oh, no.
Recording a podcast episode in a moving car.
Yeah, it's distracting.
It is a little bit distracting. We've been talking the whole way back from Columbus. We live in Northwest Ohio. We were in Columbus, Ohio for the annual meeting of the Ohio Pharmacist Association. Looking forward to doing it again in another 12 months. Right, Greg?
Absolutely. I plan to be there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being my wingman all weekend, and you take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks again, Greg, for sharing your thoughts about the annual meeting of the Ohio Pharmacist Association. We had a lot of fun, and thank you so much for being a safe driver. Greg's been a good friend of mine for more than 10 years. He works in a community practice setting in Toledo, Ohio. We have a lot of fun together, and we've attended a number of pharmacy meetings over the years together. It is awesome to have good friends who are willing to be your wingman, sit through hours upon hours of CE with you, and have meaningful discussions with you all weekend long. For me, that person is Greg. Greg, we had a great weekend, and I look forward to the next one. Before I wrap this up, the fourth and final part of this episode will include a few stories about what went wrong back home with my family while I was gone. Hopefully, this will make you laugh. But gratitude first, The house did not burn down, and my husband and kids were all alive when I got home. I've got one husband, two kids. Good job, honey. But at the beginning of the episode, I mentioned that my son missed the ACT. Let's dive into that right now. Just a little backstory first here. A few months ago, my son Derek, who's 16 and a junior in high school, he and I went through like a 30-minute process to sign him up for the ACT. You have to put in credit card information, which, kids aren't used to, but I made him do it. We picked a date, we picked a time, we picked a location, we picked the schools that the test was going to go to afterward. We put in a good 30 minutes of time registering for this test. It was a journey, okay? On Thursday morning, March 31st, before my son Derek went off to school, I wished him good luck at his track meet on Friday, which would have been April 1st, and then good luck on the ACT, which was Saturday. Your dad's in charge, is what I said. He left for school. A few hours later, Greg and I headed to OPA. What happened? That's what I ask myself. What happened? My husband was in charge. I love my husband. He's an engineer. He's very process driven. Like, we do this, we do that, and then we're a success. He's great. Something didn't get written down. Somebody needed a reminder. I was gone. They have to act like grown-ups while I'm gone. And I'm not trying to be patronizing, but any woman listening to this is going to appreciate this. Sometimes when mom leaves the house, things fall apart. Am I happy about this? No. Was this a good learning experience? Yes. I cannot be the only person that fills the gaps. I have boundaries. I left town. I put somebody else in charge. It was his job, right? I can't tell you, this should be funny. I can't tell you how many times I wanted to just call and say, don't forget, or make sure you get up early, eat a good breakfast, all those mom things that we love to say. So then the only thing that I let myself do was about at 8:00 in the morning on the day of the test. This would have been Saturday. I wished him luck. I sent him a text and it said something like, "Good luck on the ACT, honey." Something really simple. My husband tells me that it was that text message that my son found at 10:30 in the morning, more than 2 hours after the test had started, and he began a cursing spree. My husband thought he was injured. My husband ran downstairs. He was asking him, "What's wrong? What's wrong? What happened?" Of course, my son Derek said, "I missed the ACT." And I'm sure they both looked at each other like, well, crap, how did that happen? Accidents happen, people. When mom goes out of town, accidents happen. Sometimes dads do perfect. Sometimes moms screw up. Accidents happen. They're mistakes. But let us all laugh at this, please, because I have no choice but to laugh at this. A major test that my son needs in order to get into college didn't happen. He paid $60 and didn't show up. He had to go to the test center, which was the local high school, and ask them what his options are. He has rescheduled. So I believe June 11th is his new date. He had to pay a $40 fine to reschedule, or maybe a reapplication fee. It cost $60 in the first place. So my family is out a total of $100. But that's the worst thing that happened. Nobody died. But a plant died. So on to story number 2, the only house plant that I own died while I was away. Go figure. I have been unable to even have house plants for the past 19 years. At first, it was because I had small children. Anybody with little kids knows they stick their hands in there, they uproot stuff, they pull stuff apart. I didn't want to deal with the mess. Then my older son, Craig, who has autism, developed an eating disorder called pica. He eats non-food items. If you've ever listened to the podcast before, especially when I interview poison control experts, poison prevention experts, we talk about this. Craig even eats plants. Non-food items includes plants. These are not plants that you want to eat. This was a succulent plant, okay? He even eats outdoor plants sometimes too. It makes me really nervous when he's around berries. I'll leave it at that. Okay, it's a real problem. You can imagine. On a good note, though, as he's become older, he's 19 now, he has improved significantly. He's really improved significantly just over the last year, meaning he rarely eats plants now. I have to hide broccoli in his cheesy rice to get him to eat anything green now, you know? Anyways, he still picks leaves off plants, trees, bushes, etc. for no reason. He just doesn't eat them now. Enough said. Because Craig was doing so well with plants, I thought I'd bring home a succulent plant from a baby shower in January. It is now April. That plant survived almost 3 full months. It was doing really well. I even repotted it twice. I happened to leave the pot outside just to get some sun while I left. Because living inside, I guess that type of plant, a succulent, needs light. If you have one, you know what I mean. Unfortunately, no one noticed that I left it outside. I didn't leave a note. It really wasn't that big of a deal. But nobody brought the plant back inside. So the plant died. It got rained on, it got blown around, and it got frozen. So I'm looking for a new plant. Things could be worse, right? But it happened on my husband's watch, so now I get to talk about him on my podcast and tease him. Worse things could have happened, right? Only little things went wrong from there on out, okay? Like the recycling toter and the garbage toter positions got reversed somehow. Has that ever happened to you where you're throwing garbage in your recycling and you're recycling into your garbage? We had to take everything out, put it in the opposite toter, and put them back. If this has ever happened to you, it's a pain and it's messy. I just wanted to mention that, though. It's kind of funny what goes wrong when I'm not home. It's little stuff, but like I come back and I notice. It's like, what? How did this happen? I left on March 31st, and I came back in April, right? Nobody flipped any of the calendars in the house. It's so funny. It's like the Twilight Zone, and nobody printed the new calendar for lunch either. So on Friday, the 1st of April, I'm pretty sure nobody knew what was for lunch. Just saying. What else went wrong? Oh, my husband said that when he and the boys went to church, nobody brought the noisy change offering, which is only collected the first Sunday of the month. Okay, it's no big deal. You don't have to bring it. But my son and my husband wanted to be responsible and contribute something. So my husband had to borrow cash from my son because he didn't have any. Hey, the church got their money. And thank you, Derek. That was good. My husband also didn't pick up the prescriptions at the pharmacy. How ironic is that? I'm a pharmacist. I reminded him, I texted him even about that, like during the week. Please pick this up on Saturday. I guess he showed up on Sunday. He went to our independent pharmacy. It's closed on Sunday. And needless to say, I ended up picking up our prescriptions on Monday. I have asthma. I just needed my inhaler. It was no big deal. He had a couple prescriptions that he needed too, but oh my gosh, the weird things that go wrong when I'm away. I just thought maybe you'd appreciate this, a little comic relief, maybe. I don't know. But anyways, that's enough. I don't want you to think for a second that I am ungrateful for the opportunity that I had to get away. I am incredibly grateful, but I can't help poking a little fun at my family for not being able to survive 3 days without something major going wrong and something dying. The ACT and the plant. I'm going to be joking about this for years. I'm the gap filler of the family, and I'm constantly challenging my family to do their part and kind of step up. I think I need to work a little harder on that. I hope they realize that I'm the one that gets stuff done, all the stuff that they don't want to do. I am the gap filler, and that if I had been around, there's no way in hell our son would have missed the ACT. It's just dumb. But again, it's a good learning experience for my son and my husband. Better luck next time, boys. Please laugh, my dear listener. I know I did. Let's wrap this up. Congratulations to the Ohio Pharmacist Association, leadership, staff, volunteers, sponsors, and exhibitors for making this year's conference and trade show amazing. I had a great time. It was a successful conference for sure. Thank you to all the speakers who led sessions. I learned a lot, and although what I mentioned on this podcast today may not have been the biggest takeaways for everyone, they were all points that I felt were worth mentioning. And hopefully, I created some FOMO, some fear of missing out. If you want to catch the on-demand sessions of the Ohio Pharmacist Association annual conference, go to ohiopharmacists.org and click on the annual conference tab. I believe that you can still take part of the on-demand sessions between April 8th and June 8th, 2022. Just see the website for details, and I also recommend that you join OPA if you're an Ohio pharmacist or if you just want to join our association. Go to ohiopharmacists.org to learn more about benefits of membership and details on pricing. If you're one of the 100 or so LinkedIn connections that I've made since returning, I just want to thank you sincerely for connecting. I enjoy seeing what other Ohio pharmacists are up to and building relationships. It was definitely fun seeing what people posted on the conference app, which I haven't mentioned yet, but it's called Attendify. Ohio pharmacists have a lot of enthusiasm for our profession. Everything is not perfect in Ohio, but I do feel like we're all in this together. Thank you for a great weekend, everyone. And thank you, my dear listener, for listening to episode 143 of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. Please visit thepharmacistvoice.com to read the show notes. I'll have links to the Ohio Pharmacist Association, Emlah Tubuo, Greg Kramp, several of the session speakers, books that were recommended, and more in those show notes. If you know someone who would like this episode, please share it with them and subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist's Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. Thank you again for listening.